In this video, you're going to be taking a look at Luke Skywalker for the Black Series 6-inch line, based upon his appearance from Return of the Jedi at Jabba's Palace in particular. Personally, this is my favorite Black Series Luke Skywalker that Hasbro has made, and I think it's the best one that they've made to date. I'm sure it'd be highly contested among many collectors as to what the best Black Series Luke Skywalker is. But I think this one is the closest one in terms of likeness to Mark Hamill. It's pretty close, similar to Han Solo I reviewed previously. I don't think Hasbro's ever mastered his likeness 100%, but this one's pretty close. And this is Luke Skywalker in his prime. Compared to the Mandalorian Luke Skywalker, I think the head sculpt on that one looks way off. I think the outfit is a little bit better on the Mandalorian Luke, and that's because he has the gloved hand instead of the two gloveless hands here. But the head sculpt on this one I think is definitely better, which is the big selling point. And this action figure was a huge upgrade from the previous release. He is borrowing a lot of parts from the 2014 Death Star 2 Luke Skywalker, which I did used to own that action figure as well. It's a terrible likeness though to Luke. It had the painted face, and it was in the blue TIE Fighter packaging. So you know it was during that time where a lot of the Black Series action figures were hit or miss, and that one was definitely a miss. The likeness to Luke was terrible on that one. But this one is a very nice upgrade to that. Of course, there are some differences. It has a slightly different tunic here, but instead of Hasbro doing an entirely new mold, they actually just sculpted an entirely different piece to go on top of that previous mold. And I'll explain what that is here in a little bit. I actually got this action figure at Walmart in 2019, I think it was. It was either 19 or 20, and I only paid retail price for him. I know the price has gone up significantly over the last few years for him, and it does seem like he has an archive release. At least I think it's an archive release in Europe at least. I've seen samples. I'm not sure if it's like based off the Mandalorian Luke or this one, but I'm pretty sure it's this one. So something to look out for if you're in Europe. And of course, if you're in North America, it might be cheaper just to get one imported than it would be to get the original in the black and red packaging. And he was a Walmart exclusive at the time. Like I said, I think the likeness to Luke is pretty good. It's not 100% perfect, but again, it's about as close as we've probably gotten up until now. Hair looks good. You can tell it's a separately sculpted piece from the rest of the head, and they were put together. I think they did a nice job on that. Let's go ahead and take this robe off real quick. But yeah, as I mentioned, the body here is reused from the 2014 Death Star 2 Luke. And then, of course, he had a little bit of a different tunic here compared to what we see later in the film. And instead of Hasbro just doing an entirely new body for him, they just took the previous one and then sculpted an entirely different piece to go on top of that. And I think they did a good job. Looks really nice. And it does have these gaps on the side here to allow for the extra articulation. As for the rest of his outfit, it has some nice texturing details on it. It has all the folds and the creases you normally see on clothes. And it's all black. Because he's using an older body, he does have the pins in the knees there. Wears black boots. In terms of articulation, he does have the double joint or double ball joint at the head there, and the hinged shoulders, which has a very nice range of motion. As you can see, it goes way up like that. Hinged elbows, which they actually don't go quite to 90 degrees, but it's not that bad. Hinge wrist, this one goes in and out, and this one goes up and down. Joint at the torso, but because he has this extra layer of his tunic, I would recommend being careful. You don't want that to tear or rip at all. Hinge hips, then swivel thigh, double hinge at knee, and then rocker ankles. In terms of weapons and accessories, he comes with his electronic lightsaber, I guess. It's his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi is a little bit different compared to a traditional lightsaber, I think. Has an unstable crystal, I think, too. They did a nice job on the hilt. As you can see, there is a hook here to where it can accommodate to be put on a belt, but he doesn't have one. So you can't actually put it on his belt at all. But it's not too big of a deal, because if you have the robe on and you're trying to reenact scenes in Jabba's palace, you don't really see his lightsaber dangling from his belt anyway, so not that big of a deal. But it is a nice green blade. It's very translucent, and it's very light in color. Looks really good when it's held up to the light. And then he does have the blaster pistol that he takes from the Jabba's palace guard as he was descending down to the Rancor, or just before that. And it does fit around his finger there, with the trigger finger around the guard. And it's a pretty nicely sculpted pistol. Interesting barrel at the end. Interesting detail on the grip. Has a nice wash over it too. Then, of course, his robe that we see with his entrance, which is very nice. That is one thing as well about the Mandalorian Luke I really like, is that he has a black hood, or a black robe. Then for his last accessory here, which is quite remarkable because this isn't something we've gotten to frequently with the Black Series action figures, is he actually came with a stand. For a brief period of time, Hasbro was starting to include stands with, it was mostly the exclusive action figures, and of course, this being a Walmart exclusive, it had one. And it's the kind where you insert the foot in instead of it being a peg system, which I think with what we're experiencing with modern day TVC, where a lot of the action figures can't accommodate a display stand with the peg, this might be the way to go for TVC figures going forward. But for some reason, I think Hasbro has kind of abandoned this concept with including stands with the Black Series figures. And it's very loose on his foot, but it stays in the place well enough where it doesn't really have any problems at all. But this Luke doesn't really need to stand very much anyway. Usually stands pretty good on his own, as you can see there. I'm glad they included something like this. It's a little big. If you were displaying this on a shelf, it's definitely going to take up a lot of shelf space. But it's a shame that Hasbro doesn't really produce more. I think a lot of people would really like that. And of course the hood fits pretty good over his head there. If you work with it enough, it looks pretty natural. But that's pretty much all I can tell you about the Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker here. Would I recommend it for your collection? I totally would. If you can find one for a good deal, I would suggest going ahead and jumping on that because, as I said, I think this is the best Black Series Luke Skywalker that Hasbro's ever made. And compare it here with the Bespin Luke. You see the huge differences in the portraits. Very significant difference. And even compared to a lot of the other Lukes, I still think this one is the best. So if you find one for a good deal, I would suggest going ahead and getting it. And if you only want one Luke Skywalker for your collection, I think this one's the one to get. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There'll always be more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I just appreciate all your support. And check out some links in the description if you haven't done so already. And as always, thanks for watching.